I'm Mark Flatten, an investigative reporter on the watchdog team at the Washington Examiner. We've been researching recently developments at the Department of Veterans Affairs. This is the second largest federal agency, and they have been in hot water recently over conference spending. These are out-of-town trips where they take hundreds, if not thousands, of people to train their workers. All a good thing, except what we've found is extensive misspending. Most notably, there were a pair of conferences in Orlando, Florida in 2011. The total cost of these was about $6.1 million. A subsequent investigation by the Inspector General's office, in fact, found that the record keeping was so sloppy that they couldn't put a firm figure on this. In and of itself, the training conferences might look good on paper, but as you dig deeper, what you find is rampant misspending. A recent investigation by the Inspector General found about $762,000 was misspent on the Orlando conferences. Most notably, and probably the thing that people have heard about most, was a video parody of the movie Flatten, where they hired a professional actor to get up on stage, dressed as General Patton from the famous George C. Scott movie, and deliver a less than rousing motivational speech. This cost about $50,000. As the Inspector Generals got deeper into the conferences, they found other misspending. Nearly $100,000 just on trinkets, pedometers, water bottles, things like that. Our investigation of the VA has not stopped at the conferences themselves. It has gone beyond the what and into the why. This is what took us into the issues of the cronyism that goes on there. We found that it is rampant within the agency, that there have been multiple internal investigations which have faulted a number of top officials for cronyism, including Mr. Sepulveda before he resigned. And yet, it goes on. The agency spends hundreds of millions of dollars in training money. In terms of conferences themselves, the VA has had a difficult time explaining exactly how much it does spend. Last year, they were top agency financial officials were asked, how much does the VA spend every year on conferences? In fact, they were asked specifically, how much did the VA spend in 2011? Well, initially the VA told Congress they spend about $20 million. When asked at a separate second hearing, they said, well, it's about $100 million. At another point, they told Congress, well, we really don't know how much we spend. Ultimately, the House Committee on Veterans Affairs got a sort of complete list of conference spending, which showed that there was about $86 million in 2011 alone. So again, what we found, and what's been consistent with the findings of the Inspector Generals, is that you have an office that is given hundreds of millions of dollars for training money, that puts on conferences without reservation as to how much they cost, merely how much they can spend. And beyond that, you've got these offices populated with friends, cronies, in many cases people who have been fired by other agencies. And you put them in charge of big budgets with little accountability, and essentially what you wind up with is exactly what we wound up with in the Orlando conferences. Gross misspending, mismanagement, and essentially people trading their position for personal favors.